Have you ever been in a situation in your life whereby someone who has very serious influence upon your life, maybe in your workplace, maybe your boss, or maybe in school, maybe one of your lecturers, and then they deliberately pick on you, and then they deliberately hate you and start doing things that will harm you? They start doing things that will hinder your progress as a Christian. Have you ever been in that situation in your life, and then you've been praying prayers like, God, is it that you kill this person for me, or they sack this person, or something evil happen to this person, and all along you've been praying this prayer and you've been expecting something bad to happen to this person, and it seems like the more you keep praying this prayer, the more life keeps favoring this person, the more things keeps getting better for this person, and it seems like nothing bad is happening to this person, and you don't even know why. Then you feel like God is not really. Now the thing is that you have been praying the prayer with a wrong revelation, and you have been praying it the wrong way. In most times when God makes judgment in the Bible, He's not making judgment to destroy people. He's making judgment to bring them back to Him, not to destroy them. So you as a person, you've been praying this prayer to God from a heart of wanting destruction to come upon that person, even though this person is harming you, even though this person is hindering sometimes maybe even the agenda of God in your life, or even though the person is truly an evil person and his or her influence upon your life is truly bad and is having negative effects, but you have fasted, you've prayed, and nothing is happening. Now let me show you something from the Bible. But before I show you, the New Testament made us to understand, and that is Ephesians 6:12, which says that, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Now, the first line again, let's take the first line. For we wrestle not against what? Flesh and blood. Now, you are trying to invoke judgment in the spirit upon flesh, upon a human being, a fellow human like you. But the Bible made us understand that your warfare is not against what? That fellow human being. It's not against. Now, everything you may be going through, the Bible is making us understand that warfare that you are facing, that confrontation, it is not against flesh and blood. Though in the physical, the interpretation or the manifestation may be carried out or expressed through a vessel, but I'm letting you to understand that thing is actually being orchestrated from the spiritual realm, from spirits, demons, principalities, and powers. So now, when such a thing is happening and you are praying judgment upon that flesh, that vessel, upon that vessel that is serving as a means of expression for that which is being orchestrated from the spiritual realm, one of the reasons why God hardly judges these people, hardly destroys them, or hardly, maybe kill them or make something bad happen to them when you are praying such prayer, is that, number one, spiritually, they are not the author of that thing. They are just being an object, a victim to express that thing. Then number two, you must understand that if God will eventually make judgment, that judgment must be to bring this person back to righteousness, not to destroy this person. Let us look at Psalm 103 verse 8 says, the Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and plenteous in mercy. Plenteous in mercy. So as you are invoking judgment, there is something else that is stopping God, because it's plenteous in mercy. For you to properly understand what I'm saying, let us look at Isaiah chapter 26 from verse 8. It says, yea, in the way of thy judgment, O Lord, have we waited for thee. The desire of our soul is to thy name and to the remembrance of thee. Let's take line 1 again. Yea, in the way of thy judgment, O Lord, have we waited for thee. Now, there are several ways you can wait on the Lord. You can wait on the Lord in the way of purpose. That is when you are seeking God for purpose, to know what exactly is your purpose in life. You can wait on the Lord for direction, maybe for the next phase of your life. Now, here, in Isaiah 26 verse 8, this place is giving us an understanding that it is also possible to wait on the Lord for judgment. For judgment. Maybe you as a person, you are seeing an injustice being done, maybe in a territory, maybe in an area. Don't forget, Nebuchadnezzar The judgment that came upon Nebuchadnezzar was because some set of people waited upon the Lord. They were called the watchers. In Daniel 4:13, when Nebuchadnezzar was narrating his dream, he said, "In the visions I saw while lying in bed, I looked, and there before me was a holy one, a messenger coming down from heaven." So this messenger that came down from heaven was the one that came to proclaim judgment. But if you read further, if you go to Daniel 4:17, then it says, "This decision is the decree of the watchers." Let me give you King James. "This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones." So this is letting us understand that there was a demand that these holy ones have waited upon God in judgment, that God should judge Nebuchadnezzar. So that holy one that Nebuchadnezzar saw coming down from heaven that came to proclaim judgment, the people that actually demanded for that judgment were the holy ones, plural, the holy ones in Daniel chapter 4. Meaning that when God is judging upon the earth, it is that the end thereof is so that the inhabitants of the earth, the wicked, the almost every time you dream, you are seeing him chasing you with cutlass. And maybe he's not even the one. Maybe it's a spirit that is using his face, or maybe it's a spirit that is using his image. And maybe he himself too, naturally, maybe he's wicked. Some of these demonic spirits, they are very wise. They look for someone that you perceive to be wicked, or someone you already know that this one is wicked. You always look at them with wicked eyes, that this one is wicked. So that thing is in your subconscious, and the spirits come to use it against you, using that image of that wicked person to come after you in your dream. Then you feel like this person is, then you keep praying. Now you are understanding that God will not kill that person, God will not destroy him. If peradventure God will judge, it will be in a way that God will humble this man. God will bring situations upon him to humble him, so that it will turn back to him. Go and find out every time God judged the Israelites. Every time God is saying, "I will judge," he will eventually say, and then you will turn back to me and I will save you, just so that these people can learn righteousness. Now, when we read forward, we are still on Isaiah 26 verse 9. Now, let us read verse 10. "Let favor be shewed to the wicked, yet will he not learn righteousness." Now, what does that place mean? It means that maybe someone is doing wickedness, or is just being wicked deliberately, and then maybe God is overlooking it. God is overlooking it. So what that place is saying is that he will not learn righteousness. So that means now you must understand this revelation before you approach God in a place of prayer. that God should what? Judge someone. Now I will usually advise that you pray long to grow in the spirit, and then you make confessions in places where Jesus has already said. You should understand the finished work of Christ for your life and keep confessing them, so that nobody will harm you spiritually, or no weapons that is fashioned against you spiritually will prosper, or no harm will come against you. But peradventure, maybe someone in real life is actually hating on you, bullying you. Before you approach God to fight for you or judge that person or get rid of that person for you, you must have this revelation that whatever judgment, if you approach God, I personally, my conviction is that if you approach God, if someone is doing wickedness against you and you approach God to punish that person, it's just like you are accommodating bitterness in your heart against the person. Now, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, make anybody feel bad, but from my perspective, that is what I feel. So, if peradventure, you need to understand these revelations now, that if God will ever judge anyone, then it has to be from a standpoint that the end of this judgment, of whatever God will bring upon this person, will be to bring him to righteousness. So you are actually invoking judgment out of love, and out of the will of God. If you go back to Daniel 4:17, where the watchers, they as though he is concerned about the affairs of men, or they feel like God, God has ignored men's affairs and he doesn't feel concerned, or they feel like God does not see them. So in all these three possibilities, the similarity is just that they feel like God is not in the equation of men anymore. So they feel like they can do anything they want. That is the major reason why some of these wicked people, they do wickedness. Same thing here with Nebuchadnezzar. He refused to acknowledge that the Most High is still relevant in the affairs of men. Even here in Isaiah 26:10 that we just read, that says, "Let people be showed to the wicked, yet he will not learn righteousness. In the land of uprightness, he will deal unjustly and will not behold the majesty. Mean he will not acknowledge the majesty of the Lord. If peradventure you must ask. Now, the proper way and the easiest way to get judgment is to, with this revelation now, to pray that, knowing that if peradventure God will eventually judge them, it will be that He will bring them to righteousness, turn someone who has been. That is why you see people, maybe witches, that God arrests, maybe in a crusade or somewhere, when they eventually begin to confess and then they turn to Jesus, then you see God begin to use them mightily. When they confess, you don't hear that they confess and they just die like that. God doesn't just judge anyhow like that. Even the most wicked person, God wants them. If that is how God quickly judge wicked people to bring destruction upon them, the day you are being somebody's enemy and hindering the plans of God for the person's life, maybe God will have also judged you and destroyed you before you become a child of God now, before you become saved. So our God is a God who is plenteous in mercy.